What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me today, here's the guy who's making all sorts of money, hand over fist in the esports department, ready to share some of those secrets with all of you out there, and hopefully me as well, so that we can all start playing a little Counter-Strike and make a little money. Sean Mitchell, everybody. Sean, how you been, man?
Good, man. Good. Just doing the whole home quarantine life and playing a lot of CS:GO. That's about been my daily routine here for the last 2 weeks.
How's your wife doing? I remember from if anybody missed the Fantasy Alarm Meet the Family, we know Sean's wife is out on the front lines right now as we speak, working in the healthcare industry. She's a nurse,
Mhm.
right?
She
How's she
is.
doing?
She's good, man. She's actually unluckily she had the COVID hall actually moved to her hall. So here the last few times she's had to work, she's kind of had to deal with the potential cases, but fortunately for her, she hasn't been around any positive cases so far. So it's good. It's good right now. She's actually getting to draw a little bit of unemployment, so she's not really having to work unless she is really called in, which she was already kind of a PRN or kind of a whenever she made her own schedule. She wasn't exactly full time, so it's been going good. It's been going real good.
All right. Well, obviously, send her our best. Maybe we'll try and invest in some FA face masks that she can,
There we
at
go.
least walk around and advertise for us, right? I'm sure there are some people lying there in the hospital thinking, man, I wonder what's going on with my fantasy football draft this year.
Exactly. He's advertising.
Well, today we're not gonna talk baseball. We're not gonna talk any football. What we are here to do today is to bring you into the wonderful world of esports DFS. Because listen, League of Legends is getting ready to move into their summer session. Rocket League is moving into its summer session. But so far over the last month, you want to talk about raking it in hand over fist and making money for those out there in FA Nation. Sean is he is our main Counter Strike. He is our only Counter Strike guy, and I don't think there's a need for anybody else. I sort of feel like, in all honesty, Sean, we somehow stumbled onto the number one CS:GO DFS player in the game right now. That's you.
I mean, you guys stumbled onto it, and I stumbled onto it. To be flat out honest, I'll be honest. I really didn't even know what it was before I started playing DFS with it. Just kind of picked it up, started learning it, and before too long, like I said, the research process is kind of right down my alley. And then I kind of fine tune my processes, and it's working out. I mean, working out really well.
Well, let's break it down for everybody and talk about the process a little bit because, in all honesty, again, maybe I'm the old man sitting on his porch shaking his fist at a bunch of clouds, but I read your article and I was trying so hard the other day to put in a series of lineups and really just kind of sharing the whole thing. And man, I gotta tell you, I mean, it reads like stereo instructions written in a foreign language. Player names are all kind of, like you're driving the editors nuts. It's really kind of funny listening to like John and Pemba talk about. He's like, editing one of Sean's articles. What should I do? And I'm like, copy and paste. I mean, Sean's good enough that I'm not worried about some about typos here and there. I'm more looking for the fact that like the names are exactly correct and we're good to go. So how did you tackle it? What was your pathway into learning Counter Strike?
Well, once I figured out that it was very similar to Call of Duty, which was a game that I actually used to play quite a bit. I was big into Black Ops 2. My brother was playing with a bunch of friends, and he always tried to get me to play. And I'm not a gamer. I'll be flat out honest. I don't really play video games. I did whenever I was a kid. And he kind of got me into it. My wife bought me a PlayStation 3 and the game probably 6 or 7 years ago. So I played a ton of Call of Duty. And then once I figured out that Counter Strike was exactly like Call of Duty, I was like, hey, well, this is something I kind of know. So I kind of found a website, hltv.org, which is basically the Counter Strike mecca for research. I started going into there and just kind of looking up player histories, looking at their teams, seeing how they rank in the world, seeing a lot of their previous matches, looking at a lot of their stats as far as kill deaths, kill assist percentages, ADR, which is your average damage per round. And then it all just kind of started to formulate together. And then after that, I started kind of playing DFS a little bit here and there. I started playing just a couple dollars, trying to max out the quarter, and I had a little bit of success. Started moving up a little bit, and then the contests, I hate to say, are kind of weak. They don't really offer a whole range of contests in Counter-Strike. So started hopping into the bigger contests and just had some luck right off the bat. That's kind of, and then it just kind of went from there. I mean.
So how's your research refined then over time? Obviously, if you're looking at all of these stats, you're learning which stats are most important just based on the games that we play. Like, I'm looking at the DraftKings lineups, and it's like a showdown lineup. I mean, you're picking a couple of guys, you're putting one person in the MVP.
Right.
So have you refined the data that you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, looking at the captains or the MVPs, you just kind of want the most high upside guys that generally don't die a lot. And that usually are your top scorers, obviously your top guys in kills. And a lot of the times they'll also lead in assists because they're just so active. And then, of course, you want to look at their deaths. If they're dying a ton, then obviously that's going to negatively affect your upside. Because on DraftKings, you get a 1.5 for kills, and then you get a minus 1 point for getting killed. So you still get the half a point extra for your kills, but your assists also count for 1 point as well. So if you get the guys that have the most upside where they're leading their teams in scoring, obviously that's going to translate really well in your captain spot where you're getting a 1.5 times your multiplier. So I try to find a lot of the times there's so many different ways you can construct lineups. I know in the 2 and 3 gamers, I've found that, either 3x3 using 3 of my main team and 3 of another team has worked really well. The lineup that I won with last night was 3-2-1, which had, my main stack. I usually find one team that I think has the most complete chance of winning. And like a 2 or 3 gamer, I try to find that team that I think is easy, like a 2-0 sweep. Then I usually 3-stack them and then find another team that I think has at least 2 studs. And then 2-stack them mainly, and then kind of round off my one-off with some value of another team. But here lately, I've been
everybody listening right now. Everybody listening right now is like vehemently like taking notes, hitting pause, rewind, trying to get back at that. We'll cover it a little bit slower so that everybody can do. But please continue here.
Sure. And then here lately, I've been trying to find more of the value captains. The guys that I think have at least a floor of 70 or 80 points. A lot of the lesser known teams, I should say, because of course everybody knows the big names. A lot of the people in esports know all the big names. You got Team Liquid, you got the Mad Lions, you got the big names, Astralis, Fnatic. So most of them gravitate to those bigger names. That's just kind of public perception, and you even get that in all your major sports as well. So trying to find the value teams that not a lot of people are going to be looking at. And then, what I like to call is covering my bases. So I like to find my hammer team, which on 6 gamers and 5 gamers like we have been having on the main slates, you can kind of delve a little bit into different constructions where you can do like a 2-2-1-1 where you kind of split up 2 teams for your 2 stacks and then do a couple one-offs that you think have really high upside. Or you could even go 2x1x1x1x1, where you literally take a 2 teams or a 2 stack from a team, and then you do 4 separate one-offs who you think could all have possible upside. And I've seen all of these lineup constructions do pretty well. They just kind of alternate days on which one wins. So I think it's more of finding the guys who have the best floors for your stacks. That's the hard part, because if you are picking 3 people off of a 5-man team, and obviously that team doesn't do very well, or that third option doesn't do very well, that's not going to be very well for your lineup. So that's why I kind of say I like to cover my bases, because I usually like to find at least 2 of the 3 that I know for sure that I think have the best upside and with the best floor. And then I kind of alternate the value out of the other 3 guys or 2 guys. So because you're always going to have a really low price guy or 2 on each team, even on some of the best teams. But, you catch the day that those guys have their best day, and obviously you're going to put yourself in a really good spot in that stack. So that's really kind of the way I go about it at first. I kind of find the team that I think has the best chance of winning. And it's not so much that I want them to have a 2-0 sweep because DraftKings doesn't exactly give the best sweep bonus. They only give 5 points. I've even asked them a couple times to make that like a 15 or 20 point thing because I think it does differentiate a lot. But in the same fact, you only get 5 points. So a 2-0 sweep, if your guys don't exactly score high with a lot of kills and assists, you're obviously not going to put yourself in a great spot.
Well, that's one of the things. That's one of the things that they deal with in MMA also.
Right.
Because in MMA, if you've got a stackable main event that's a 5-rounder, you don't have to worry about who the winner is, but you want to stack those two guys because you know that they're likely to go 5 rounds with the number of strikes as opposed to just a 3-round fight that goes 1 round. Yeah, maybe he knocked him out, but didn't really get too many strikes in there. So that's why I actually, when I texted you, was that Monday morning? I think it was Monday morning. I texted you Monday morning about that, and because I was looking at your breakdown, and I was like, well, these guys sound like they've got a really good chance of sweeping this team. So do I avoid stacking off of teams who I think are going to end up with a 2-0 sweep, just knowing that they're not going to get that third game of kills?
Yeah, that, and of course, if you're like I think we were talking about Furia, which they were playing against Yeah, which I think Yeah is not a really good team at all.
Right.
So, and that was what I was trying to say was that if your best case scenario in that instance is that you have them totally dominate both maps, and if they don't, they were high priced. I mean, they were one of the highest price stacks that you could build on that slate. So, if you do invest that kind of money in those 3 guys or 2 guys even, you really have to have best case scenario to even, especially in GPP, I mean, where you're playing against guys who are putting in hundreds of lineups, 150 or whatever, you're just not really going to have that good of a chance. So that's kind of why I think it's definitely more important to find the games that are more stackable, kind of like FaZe is a team that I love to stack against, and today they kind of proved me wrong. But here recently they had let a lot of teams come back, so they would get up a big lead and they would be up 6 or 7 rounds, and then they'd let them come back. So there was one day, I think it was the day that I won 3rd and 4th in the big tournament. I'd stacked FaZe as my main stack, and they went to like 3 or 4 overtimes, and that's what you want. You want the most upside, of course, and that's how you get that is by getting a full 3 maps, hopefully a couple of OTs, and then your guys that you picked do very well. So I had picked on Brokey that day, and he's a rookie on FaZe, and he's been really good lately. He's the highest rated player on their team at the moment, other than Nico, and he was only 14% owned, and he basically won me all the money. I mean, it was on his back. I put him as a captain in one, and he was my one-off on my other. So, it really worked out really well. And that's really what you got to find. You just got to find the highly stackable teams, ones you think can go the distance and get you those 3 maps. Obviously, you're maximizing your upside then.
Let's talk about the maps. Let's talk about the scoring and stuff like that. Give us a quick rundown here of basically what we're looking for, like the object of the object of Counter-Strike. I almost called it Call of Duty. The object of Counter-Strike, the ultimate goal for each team. How do they end up with the win, and how are they accruing the scoring as we go through?
I mean, a lot of the better teams, I say, play better together. They know how to work each. You have 2 sides on the map. You have the terrorist side or the T side, then you have the CT side or the counter-terrorist side. So the T side is whenever you are trying to plant the bomb, you have an A and a B site on the map. So you're actually going into either one of the sites to plant the bomb, and then the counter-terrorists are basically trying to not allow that to happen. And if it does, then it's their job to, cease and destroy and then defuse the bomb. So a lot of the better teams know a little bit more about sticking back and allowing the other team to kind of come in and then kind of flanking them. And then you obviously have a lot of gunners on those teams too that will kind of sneak up behind a lot of teams. And finding those guys is really important because those are the guys that usually are the most aggressive. It does happen to result in them getting killed quite a bit as well, but most of the time those are going to be your leading kills guys. And a lot of the times they're not the AWPers, which are your rifles, or your those guys usually end up with a lot of decent amount of kills, and they don't die a lot because they kind of scope out, and they're the snipers. So I kind of want to always get the captains that run with like the AKs, because a lot of the times they're going to be the ones that do the most damage, and if they don't get the kill, they're typically going to get assists, because they're going to put the damage down and knock them down, 60 or 70 hit points. Then their teammate comes in and they get the assist, they get the kill. So it kind of works in correlation that way as well.
Does each team have like set positions that, that this guy's a sniper, that this guy's...
They do. Most of them do. Like Woxic for FaZe, he's their main, AWPer. Fallen for MIBR, a guy's a god with the AWP. So good with it. Simple for Navi, he was playing earlier today. That guy's really good. Slowy for Havu's really good. I mean, there are those guys, those set guys that have their main job in the team. And of course, a lot of them are just role players too. So it is very important to know who does what on the team.
Okay. Well, so then as we look through that, we're learning. So how do they end up? It's a 2-1 score, a 2-0 sweep. What's their ultimate goal? Is it just to kill everybody off, or?
In the road to Rio, it's all been best of threes. So of course they get that third map option. Some of these other ones, the clutch slate and stuff, have only best of twos. So the only way they can technically win is to get a 2-0 sweep. The 2-0 sweep is definitely, I'm sure, every team's main goal, especially in a best of three. Obviously, it's not pure domination. That way you win both maps. You don't have to take the risk of going to map 3 as a player. But, of course, as a DFS player, you want the third map. You want that extra round for all the upside kills. You want that extra opportunity, I should say. It's just like, looking at usage in NBA. Whenever you get a bench player that, might get a lot of four-quarter run or something in a blowout or something, those are the kind of things that you want. You got to have that as a DFS player. Those are the things that if you stack that team or those teams, you're really going to jump up, especially if they're low owned.
So what positions, what are the designated positions? Do we have designated positions here for everybody?
That's the thing is, most of them, you do have your sniper guys who typically only play with snipers on their buy rounds whenever their typical, their main gun is the sniper. You also have guys who play with just, the AKs, which the AKs do a lot of damage.
Right.
And then, there's a lot of guys that really do good with, just the pistols or the deagles or even the M9s and Mac 10s. But that's the thing also in the game is you get a certain amount of dollar amount for killing with a said gun. Obviously, some of your lower guns, your pistols and stuff give you more dollar amounts, and that's in the game you buy your guns by doing stuff of that nature, and also your utility. So your flashbangs, your grenades, your stuff of that nature, your smokes, all that stuff has to be bought before the round. And that's why you see a lot of teams will save guns, meaning if they're down to a 3v2 and they know they probably don't have a shot of winning, they'll try to save their guns. That way they don't have to waste that money the next round. So that's really important too about teams that are really smart and how they use their money. And because if you use all your money and you lose like 3 rounds in a row, then you're going to be looking at a pistol round because you don't have enough money to buy the heavier guns. So it's very, very strategic, and there's a lot of teams that do it really well, and there's a lot of teams that don't. So,
all right. So what's your favorite type of player, or I guess it's probably the player you put most often in your captain spot? Is that just the AK guy who just goes out there, has a whole mess of kills, but has like the lowest dying rate?
And that's the thing. I do like putting the AWPers in there as well because a lot of them will be the top scoring guys. They're just that good. Like Fallen for MIBR, he's just really good with it. Slowy for Havu, as I mentioned. Simple for Navi is usually their top scorer. It's just finding those guys that do it well, and that are very, very. They don't have to use just the AWP all the time. They're even good with their pistols, which is their secondary gun. It's just finding those guys that have the most upside, I think, and I do like putting a lot of the AK guys in there as well. Like Fur for MIBR, he's a guy that is a good flank. He's one that usually takes himself away from the pack and he tries to flank the backside, and it works out a lot for him. He gets a couple, 2 or 3 kills, and ends up with a lot of 4K kills and 5K kill rounds, which also give you more points. If you kill 4 people in a round, you get an extra 3 points. If you kill 5, which is called an ace, you get an extra 5 points on the round on top of your kills. So finding those guys that do that a lot, get a lot of 4K kills, and it's not going to happen a lot, but finding those guys that put themselves in that situation, I should say, and then put themselves in clutch situations, which would be like a 1 versus 3 or a 1 versus 4. Those are the other ones, or the other, I guess, attributes that give you points as far as DFS goes.
So when you sit there looking at lineup construction, are you looking at the style of player it is, or are you looking more at what his price is based on what he's done in the past?
I think first and foremost, I like to see what the recent form is. I kind of like to get an idea of how they've been playing lately, because you can find a lot of low-owned guys and a lot of low-salary guys that are kind of trending upward, like you would find in NBA, the guys that nobody's looking at, but they might come out and score 15 points, have 6 rebounds and a couple assists, and get you a really good score. I try to look at their form first, see how they've done recently, not just individually, but as a team. Obviously, you are banking on your team winning if you're playing guys from that team, right? So I usually typically look at that, see how they're playing. Then I kind of look at the public perception of the teams. Lastly, what I think I do is look at price. I think price is the last thing I look at because that differentiates a lot of how I build my lineups. I'm a GPP player. All I do is play tournaments, so I don't want to be on the same page as everybody else. I want to find the guys that nobody's playing. That's where you win your money.
All right. I mean, listen, obviously it makes sense. I do the same thing in football and baseball when I'm building all my lineups there. All right. Well, what about contest selection here? Now, are they mostly like I've seen a bunch of 6-game slates, nice big juicy slates. Is that what we're looking at here during the road to Rio? Or are we looking at smaller slates? And if so, what's your strategy for the smaller slates?
Well, they've been doing a lot of the 3-gamers to start the mornings off, and they've been around 9, Eastern time in the morning. They'll usually have 3-game, and then they'll either have like a 5 or a 6-game in the afternoon. Going into each one is definitely totally different. The lineup constructions definitely vary. On the 5 and 6-game, like I said, you can kind of afford to spread your constructions out a little bit. Try to go for max upside because there's going to be a lot more variance. On a 3-gamer, you only have 6 teams to choose from, so you kind of got to take a stand. You got to take a stand on a team or two and just hope you picked right, obviously. But I think it's more about getting your stacks right and then covering your bases, as I mentioned before. Make sure you cover all the value plays. You want to get your main 1 or 2 that you're going to be sticking in maybe 80% if you're stacking that team. And then you want to kind of alternate your value guys in with those guys because technically you're going to have a lot of times where those guys will outscore your main guys. But having all 3 or all 2 in a lineup obviously is going to catapult you really high.
Huh. Very, very interesting. I want to see how I would have done. I don't know. Do you remember Monday at all? Right? I'm like, do you remember Monday? Or maybe it was Tuesday. I'm trying to see what the
I know Furia lost the first map, and I was really shocked, but they ended up coming back and winning both of the next 2. I don't remember if they paid off because I didn't play them.
Right.
I want to say that was a slate that I pretty much probably lost a little bit. I almost broke even, I think. Yesterday's main slate was brutal. I think every team that I'd talked about winning lost. So I can't remember who. Ince, I think I played. Denectas, I played. There was somebody else. And then, of course, Liquid the day before got totally struck by Envy. That wasn't good. So, if you take...
Oh, that might have been the day that I was looking at it.
Yeah, if you take stands on those higher-priced teams and they don't perform, you might as well just call it a day and look for the next slate, which here lately they've been having like a 2-game clutch slate on at night at like 6, 7 p.m. They've been adding a few of these smaller ones. Like last night, it was just a 2-gamer that was a couple of no-name teams. They even changed the names of their teams before the game. Like I was like, what? Wait, what? And then literally 7 minutes until lock, I saw two guys go out on DK, and so I DM'd them, and I'm like, hey, why are these guys out? Because I'd seen it, I just looked 5 minutes ago, and they were in. And then they wrote me back and said, no, these guys are out for tonight. So I hate to say that was probably a little bit of leg up for me because I had 50 lineups, and I literally got every single one of them out except two. But sometimes sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. It helps to have to be on top of everything. And those guys ended up being 20 and 12% owned. So obviously, you give yourself a big edge by paying attention. These smaller slates and these no name teams, you got to stay on point. So it does help.
Well, how much does that happen for you? Like, I mean, when listen, I mean, you're coming off of NBA where it's like late scratch central.
Right.
And it's the most aggravating thing. Do you get a lot of late scratches in esports?
Not so much in like these bigger tournaments with the higher echelon teams. The Road to Rio, I think, Orglis has been the only team I think they pretty much dropped out of the whole tournament. Don't really know why. But a lot of these,
because their moms were like, "Listen, guys, I told you to take the garbage out. No video games if you don't." Right.
Right, I mean, they were slated to play Gen G one day, and luckily we got that news like 2 hours before the slate kicked off. The thing is, I still had people saying, "What happened to Orglis and Gen G?" And I'm like, guys, I mean, they posted it all over Twitter, they email everybody, so it's not really that different from NBA or NFL. I mean, I know NFL doesn't have that many late scratches. I guess NBA is probably worse. But yeah, you just got to pay attention. I mean, if you don't pay attention and you don't check your lineups before it starts, it could happen. Especially if you're playing those niche slates that are the later ones, that are the smaller teams. That, like I said, they had two guys just decided not to play last night. So guess what? They only had a 3-man team, and those were the only three that you could play. I would like to. I haven't looked into that to see if that may be an advantage by playing the guys, but those guys that are the only ones left on the team that you can actually choose, and thinking that maybe they're going to soak up a lot of the kills. It doesn't exactly work that way like NBA, where you got the guys who get like a 8 to 10% usage bump whenever so and so is out. Like CJ McCollum gets a 15% bump when Dame's out. It's not exactly like that unless those guys are really, really good. And the bad thing is that team that did that last night, I stacked basically my captain was the guy that had 9 points in the lineup that I posted on Twitter earlier, where I actually won the tournament. He only had 9 points as a captain. He was the best player on their team, and they only had 2 other options that you could pick from. But it happened to work out for me because my other captain really performed really well. But in that instance, I just kind of got lucky because he did not do very well. So sometimes it just works out.
All right, so let's say somebody just wants to start off, kind of test the waters, give a full read of your whole thing. You name your stacks that you like, the players who you like,
right,
at the end the most. Talk to me about contest selection for beginners. Where should they really kind of start off? And and to take a look at what your top stacks, your top plays are. How much do they stay in that range in the beginning versus finding that random name that maybe you wrote about in the matchup?
I would probably say typically if you're starting out on a 2 or 3 game slate, that I would probably try to max like the quarter. Try to get 20 lineups in there, and I know a lot of people don't like doing that. So a lot of people like to just play a few. But when I said covering the bases, you're going to need those combos because that's the thing with the 2 and 3 game slate. If you miss one guy, you pack it in. You're not going to win anything. And that's the thing. That's the big thing about covering those bases. So I'd say if you're playing like a 2 or 3 game slate, get as many lineups in as you can. Stack the main stacks. Get all the value in that as you can. And then, your one-offs can differentiate already by themselves, and then your 2-man stacks need to be pretty viable as well. If you're going to play like a 5 or 6 game slate, then I would probably say you could play a fewer amount of lineups, maybe 5 to 8 or even 5 or less if you want. I would just mainly focus on the high upside guys. Again, there's going to be a lot more variance in those bigger slates. You do have a lot more options, a lot of other guys that can go off as far as your cheaper guys. So I would say you probably run a lot less risk of totally dunking, I should say, in the bigger slates if you play lesser. I mean, you could just totally go 0-4, but it does happen. It's going to happen to everybody. But if you do hit those upside plays and they all go off, you can probably be in a really good spot.
Well, so far so good with Sean Mitchell over at Fantasy Alarm. All the Counter-Strike stuff that we do, guys, is totally free, more than available. You can take it for a test drive. It sounds to me like I need a 2 or 3 game slate. I need to max out the quarter. I need to spend my time doing it.
And that's the thing is there's not and I know and I didn't really go too far into the contest selection. Like I said, I started out by maxing the dollar or the quarter. I was playing 20 lineups and just, kind of refining my process until I felt comfortable with it. And then once I started playing more and more, of course, I started jumping up. But that's the thing. There's not a whole lot of big tournaments on there. Like whenever you're playing NBA, you've got all kinds of price ranges where you got single entries, you got 3 max, you got 5 max, and then, of course, you're 20 max, and then you're 150. The bad thing about this is you essentially got single entry, 20 max. Then you usually have your big $10, $12, $15 tournament with your big top heavy prize. Other than that, you might have the bunny hop, which is a $33 3 max.
Right.
There's just not a whole lot of contest offerings. So I just went straight in. I'm a tournament player. The biggest tournament was the $10 that everybody typically plays now. But for me, it was putting in 10 to 20 in that one and just going from there. I mean, that was really the only way I wanted to play it. I'm not huge into single entry. I typically like to make more lineups, and I'm the world's worst with being indecisive when it comes to just picking, one or two guys. That's my hardest part. I feel a lot more comfortable whenever I can cover the bases. Put it that way.
Okay. I mean, listen, if you know what, for something like this, it makes sense. I play a lot of single entry for NFL and MLB because, I latch onto my guys and I stick with them and, I'll be confident in that. But for something like this, I feel like it's probably best to kind of spread things out. Just the more you spread, the more you learn what works for you, what doesn't work for you.
Yep.
Now, if we don't want to go full-blown DFS and jump in all over at DraftKings for Counter-Strike, talk to me here. You just started putting up all these prop bets for Monkey Knife Fight,
right?
And all I'm seeing is, I just went 4-0. I just went 3-0. Just 5-0. So talk to me about your Monkey Knife Fight props.
I mean, it's kind of the same essence. I mean, I use the same kind of research tactic, that I use for DFS. It, highly correlates with a lot of the props that they have over there because essentially you're basically betting on guys to either kill this many or kill this many, or the head-to-heads where they'll get 2.5 kills to a player or something. And typically, I know the good guys, and I know when the lines are off as far as the props go. I know whenever the wrong person is getting that number of kills or not. So it kind of just highly correlates with the research. Usually, a lot of the times, I like to play the first maps because you can see where a lot of guys either start slow or they usually start off hot. So finding those guys and typically finding your runners where you get a guy who's getting way too many kills on the prop, you typically know there's probably not a very good chance that he's going to get that. So it's more of just, researching their first maps, looking at their last 10 game logs, seeing how they've done on those first maps, seeing those first maps that usually end up occurring more. If you get Mirage 3 or 4 times, you kind of see how they've done on that map as well. So a lot of the same stuff, just different kind of aspects as far as the props go.
I love it. Guys, check it out go to fantasyalarm.com/monkey and register. If you're not registered over at Monkey Knife Fight, register that way through Fantasy Alarm. You get a little deposit bonus, and obviously it's always nice to get a little free money to start spending away.
I haven't had a deposit yet. I've been still playing off the $5 freebie that I got when I signed up. So
there you go.
I think I'm up to like $25. So I'll be playing for free for a little while.
I'm sure you'll be playing for free for a very long while. All right. Well, there you go, guys. This is your way into Counter-Strike Esports. Listen, it's not going away. It's not going away. Once we get all sports back, this is still going to be a great, great way. While everybody else is turning their attention to NFL and MLB, this is like a great spot for you to stay in, as well, to continue to make money and help fund if you want to go play one of the bigger GPPs for, something like the NFL. This is definitely the way to go. Guys, follow Sean on Twitter. You see his Twitter address right there in front of you. You want to make sure that you give him a follow. It's at smitchell17, right? 17?
Yes, sir.
You can follow Fantasy Alarm also. All his stuff gets published and retweeted out over there. Give us a follow on Facebook, fantasyalarm.com, as you'll get all access to these live streams. We're going to keep hounding Sean until everybody's making money hand over fist.
Fine with me.
There you go. And, of course, our YouTube page where we have all of these videos in. Check it out. Put Fantasy Alarm into the search bar over there. Again, fantasyalarm.com/monkey. Get over to Monkey Knife Fight. Make your first deposit. Get a little freebie, a little deposit bonus there, and Sean will help you.
That promo code ALARM if you do. First deposit, use that promo code ALARM. Make sure you get that little. I think you get what? I think it was 6 months free of FA whenever you sign up and use the promo code in the deposit. So, yeah, 6 free months. Whenever membership here at FA, that's worth its weight in gold. So there you go.
There you go. Listen, he says it best, so I'll just leave it at that. Big thanks to our producer, Matt Sells, for all the championship work he does. And, wow, Sean, thanks so much for sharing the knowledge, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here at Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. For Sean Mitchell, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.